Hugh Freeze fired at Auburn. Who should be their next head coach? And our SEC Week 10 winners and losers. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show, reacting to the news of yesterday as Hugh Freeze fired over at Auburn, but we'll also recap some of the action we saw this week in the SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And now broadcasting on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, broadcasting daily across Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And, of course, you can find us on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode, it's brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's dive into it. The big news happening on Sunday afternoon as Hugh Freeze officially ousted as Auburn head coach. We knew this was coming. He said himself on Saturday, following their 10-3 home loss to Kentucky, that sees Auburn season is, quote, unacceptable. And the Auburn administration on Sunday agreed. Freeze out as Auburn's head coach, going 15-19 overall, 6-16 in the SEC. Just did not work. Auburn had just 4 wins in their last 18 games against Power 4 opponents. He was 4-5 this season, in danger of having a losing record for the 3rd straight year. Second-year defensive coordinator DJ Durkin will take over as the Tigers' interim coach. And a lot of people excited about this because DJ Durkin that defense has been the strength of this team this year. And I've talked about it before. I mean, he was a head coach at Maryland 2016 through 2018. Didn't go great. He was, I want to say, 10-15 overall as a head coach, but went to be a consultant with the Atlanta Falcons in 2019, 2020, 2021. He was with Ole Miss as a co-DC, then 2 years with A&M as a DC, and now 2 years with Auburn as a DC, and he has had good defenses since his time in the SEC. But as for Hugh Freeze, his buyout, $15.8 million after he signed that 6-year contract, taking the job in late 2022. Chris Lowe reporting the new Auburn head coach will be their 4th in 7 years, with a total of $52.5 million in buyout money paid to 3 coaches not to work. Call them buyout you, Chris Lowe said. Hugh Freeze confirming the news on Sunday, telling On3, tough day. Love this place. That's what he said to Justin Hokanson. But Auburn AD John Cohen releasing a statement Sunday saying, I've informed Coach Freeze of my decision to make a change in leadership with the Auburn football program. Coach Freeze is a man of integrity. We're appreciative of his investment in Auburn and his relentless work over the last 3 years in bolstering our roster. Our expectations for Auburn football are to annually compete for championships, and the search for our next leader of Auburn football begins immediately. Of course, Freeze made it about a year longer than Brian Harsin did. Harsin was fired with 4 games left in his second season. Freeze is out with 3 games left in year 3 for him. And it was an Auburn team that was expected to take a step forward. See, this is the crazy part. I mean, people are like, well, I mean, it wasn't all that bad this year. Same thing with Brian Kelly at LSU. But it was by year 4 for Brian Kelly, you're expected to take that big leap. LSU was expected to be a playoff team. It's kind of the same thing with Florida. I think they just wanted to see improvement. Like if, how Auburn or Florida finished last year, Billy Napier, they wanted to see improvement into this year. We didn't see that. And the same thing with Hugh Freeze. You didn't have to make the playoff this year, but you had to take a step forward, and they were close. I mean, a lot of close losses, and Freeze routinely repeated that word, close, to getting over the hump. Even after Saturday's loss, he said Auburn's season could have been a lot better with just a few plays. He said, I wish I could ask for patience, but that's not really something that people want to give in this day and time, and I understand that. Hugh, what do you need? 10 more years for this thing to turn around? Come on, man. So under Freeze, Auburn, they recruited at a high level. They first 2 full classes, ranked number 8, number 6 nationally. But the on-field results did not follow. Auburn went just 1-13 against ranked opponents under Hugh Freeze. And Auburn staring down a 5th straight losing season. That is a load that has not been reached for the program since 1950. After the firing, some Auburn players taken to social media. Auburn 5-star wide receiver commit Jace Matthews said on social media, "I liked HUGH FREEZE, but anything to improve the program is great." So this is where you'll start to see, are some of these committed kids going to stay firm to their commitment because they like Auburn, not just the head coach. How about the current players? D lineman Jay Hardy and Malik Blockton. They posted a picture of DJ Durkin and a song from Lil Durk with the caption, Lil Durk. So a lot of players getting on board with DJ Durkin taking over. Freshman quarterback Deuce Knight posted a picture of him in Auburn gear. So, is that a sign, hey, I'm committed here to stay here? I don't know. We'll find out. Time will tell. But now the question is, where does Auburn go from here? CBS Sports, they've got some candidates posted. And, okay, you can laugh at some. We'll run through them very quickly. They list first up Texas A&M coach Jimbo Fisher. They said Jimbo Fisher at A&M ended in disastrous fashion. Florida State, he obviously won a national championship, led the Aggies to a number 4 finish in 2020. If Fisher went to Auburn, he'd quickly become one of the top recruiters in the SEC again. Coming back to college football wouldn't be about money for Fisher. He's getting a massive buyout, or got that massive buyout from A&M. It would be about reclaiming his name, and Auburn could use a coach with a big chip on his shoulder. So, look, on the surface, we laugh, but that's not a bad argument to be made. Jimbo never had a problem recruiting. He could go to Auburn and recruit. The problem, I think, with Jimbo was kind of what happened with Hugh. The offense kind of went stale, his schemes. Like, if Jimbo would come in, he'd have to hire, I'd make sure he comes in with a young or proven offensive coordinator that's going to run this offense. And Jimbo, hey, you be hands off. Another name they threw in there, James Franklin at Penn State. CBS Sports writes, when Franklin was fired, he said his new goal was simply to go win a national championship elsewhere. He's one of the highest floor coaches in college football, posted 6 10-win seasons and 5 AP top 10 finishes at Penn State. He also previously led Vanderbilt to 18 wins in 2 years, reached the national semifinals just earlier this year. Auburn would more than take Franklin leading the Tigers back to 10-win seasons consistently. Again, I think James Franklin would be a nice hire. Is he going to win a championship at Auburn? Probably not. But could he get them back to respectability? I like the name. Eli Drinkwitz, another one being thrown in here. Of course, as CBS Sports says, a Gus Malzahn disciple, Drinkwitz created some of the most dynamic teams in the SEC since arriving at Mizzou in 2020. At Auburn, he would be able to expand his recruiting chops and compete for the best players in the country. And he has that trash-talking personality that would make him beloved at Auburn. Think of him taking shots at DeBoer ahead of the Iron Bowl. Auburn is at its best when the program swings for the fences. So Eli Drinkwitz, again, that's now Drink's name connected to Florida, possible interest in LSU and Auburn. So again, all these big SEC jobs open, and anybody who's got any modicum of success, your name's going to get thrown around. Of course, Tulane coach John Sumrall, his name is being thrown in there. Sumrall is one of the fastest rising coaches in college football. And look, he's done a great job at Troy and now Tulane, and former Kentucky linebacker, has experience in the SEC, knows what it takes to win at this level. And his wife went to Auburn. So familiarity with the Plains. They also list Arizona State coach Kenny Dillingham, young guy, hungry, has coached under Mike Norvell, Dan Lanning, and Gus Malzahn. Again, had a short stint at Auburn back in the day. So I like Dillingham a lot, brings a lot of energy. What do you leave his alma mater? That's the question. Georgia Tech coach Brent Key, same thing. He's had plenty of experience recruiting in the Deep South. Of course, coached under Saban. So that's another one to keep an eye on. USF coach Alex Golish, having great success at USF, coached under Josh Heupel, ran that offense at Tennessee. And look at what he's been doing at USF. They're having a fantastic season. So Golish is a name to keep an eye on. USA Today listed a few others. They had Rhett Lashley from SMU. He did just sign an extension with the Mustangs last week. So I don't know what the buyout situation would be there for him. They list Manny Diaz from Duke. I would be more apt to just say if this goes well with DJ Durkin as an interim, I would be more apt to just say give DJ Durkin the job, then go get Manny Diaz from Duke, because they're kind of the same guy to me. Dan Mullen from UNLV. Again, I think it's a little more kitschy and fun, but I can't see Dan Mullen coming back as a head coach of the SEC, but he's doing a great job at UNLV. And then lastly, they list Urban Meyer. They just say, can't hurt to make a phone call if you're Auburn. Don't know if Urban has any interest in coming back. I did hear, there were some rumblings last week about maybe Florida. Urban could be interested to hear from Florida again, return there. But Auburn, they owe Freeze more than $15 million, a figure that increases this year's total buyout figure of the 11 fired FBS coaches to an industry record of $182 million. That's all to pay coaches to go away, stop working. And then one more note here. After his 34th game as Auburn's head coach, one in which his offense did not score a single touchdown against the second worst defense in the SEC, that was Kentucky, Hugh Freeze said he wished he could ask for more patience. Gene Chizik only got 25 games after he won a national championship. So you got 34, more than enough sample size to prove if he was the guy, and he was not. All right, when we return, we'll get to our winners of the weekend from SEC Week 10. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, but first, I want to remind you about our friends over at the Game Time app. Look, Game Time or college football, it's back. And, of course, no better way to get in and watch the action than with our friends at the Game Time app, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way for you to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You pull up the Game Time app in just a couple taps. You're going to see some amazing deals. I'm talking your favorite college football games as low as $25. It is faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way to buy tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. If you've never used it before, use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, and you will get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, it's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. And as I always say, Game Time, swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, we're along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Let's get into the other action. We talked about Hugh Freeze and Auburn and all that. Let's get into our winners and losers of the weekend. We're going to start first with our winners. They deserve some shine, some guys who came up big this weekend. We're going to start over at Georgia's. Chauncey Bowens scored the go-ahead touchdown for Georgia as they beat Florida 24-20. Bowens broke off a 36-yard game-winning score. The redshirt freshman has made his presence felt this season in that backfield, sharing it with Nate Frazier and others. His third game this season going over 70 yards rushing, but more importantly, he was committed to Florida at one point in high school. Later flipped his commitment to Georgia, so you know this one meant a lot to him. Kirby Smart saying after the game, Chauncey did an awesome job. I thought that the check to the run for the touchdown was the biggest play of the game because Gunnar Stockton saw something, changed the O-line, picked it up, and it's really hard to run that. It's hard to defend that play with them stunting the line as they were doing. So Chauncey Bowens coming up big. And just like that, Georgia, 7-1 overall, 5-1 in the SEC. Still haven't seen that dominant Georgia performance for 4 quarters yet this season. This week, they will go to Starkville to face Mississippi State before Texas comes to town a week later. That is going to be a big one. Another winner of the weekend over at Ole Miss, running back Kewan Lacey. The Ole Miss running back continues to emerge as a big-time rusher this week, carrying the ball 24 times for 167 yards and a touchdown as Ole Miss beat South Carolina 30-14. It marks Lacey's 4th 100-yard rushing game already this season, and he's averaging close to 5 yards a carry. He ranks 8th in all of college football in rush yards at 863, and he's tied for second most rushing touchdowns in the country with 13. Of course, leads the SEC in rushing touchdowns, second in the SEC in rushing, just behind Ahmad Hardy. And Ole Miss, they improved to 8-1 on the season, 5-1 in the SEC. And here's what's left for Ole Miss. A home game versus the Citadel. They're going to win that one. Home game versus Florida. Should win that one. And then an Egg Bowl game on the road at Mississippi State. Rivalry game, but Ole Miss should win that one. And that's what's left for Ole Miss. They could finish 11-1 and find themselves getting an invite to Atlanta for the first time ever. Of course, depends on how the rest of the SEC shakes up. This whole thing, there's no East or West, right? And so it's kind of hard to, like, you're playing all the tiebreakers in your head, and you're like, this team never played this team. So, again, it's going to be very interesting to see how all that shakes out. Another winner of the weekend, Arch Manning. After spending all last week in the concussion protocol, it was reported that Arch would be a game-time decision for the Vandy game, and he responded with one of his best games yet, going 25 of 33 for 328 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Texas led by as much as 34-10 heading into the fourth quarter. Vandy offense finally woke up to make this one much closer than it needed to be, but the Longhorns win it 34-31. And give Arch credit. He took a lot of heat this season for his lackluster play, but these last couple of weeks, he's looked much more like the player he was expected to be preseason. This game connecting with his weapons, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, DeAndre Moore, and now Texas. 7-2 overall, 4-1 in the SEC, and still the possibility of winning out and making the playoff. As crazy as that sounds, next up, they get a bye before a monster road trip at Georgia. But shout out Arch Manning, responding to the critics and performing well. How about another winner of the weekend over at Oklahoma? Tate Sandell. If you don't know the name, get to know it. The Oklahoma kicker was the hero of the night, coming up with some monster kicks on the road in a hostile environment in Knoxville, going 4 for 4 on his field goal attempts, making kicks of 55, 51, 40, and another 55-yarder. Xavier Robinson had another big day running the football. John Mateer capped the night off with a touchdown run to ensure the victory. And while Kirk Herbstreit was not a big fan of Tate Sandell's short shorts, he must be doing something right. Nailing those big kicks. Expect him not only to be SEC Special Teams Player of the Week this week, but he should also be in the Lou Groza conversation this year for the Sooners for best kicker. He is now 6 for 6 beyond the 50 and has hit from 55 3 times. From Parker Thune, he said the Sooners had two total field goals of 50-plus yards in the first 3 years of the Brent Venables era. Tate Sandell has quadrupled that total in his first 9 games as a Sooner, going 6 for 6 from beyond 50. Certainly incredible stuff there. Another win of the weekend, I got Anthony Evans, a Mississippi State wide receiver, had 5 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns for Mississippi State on Saturday in their 38-35 win over Arkansas. The State got their first SEC win in 2 years. Evans is a former Georgia wide receiver, transferred this offseason to join Jeff Lebby's crew, and he's become a big-time weapon for them. He has caught no less than 4 catches in every game this season. 4 catches or more in every game this season. He's gone over the 100-yard mark 3 times this year. Did it against Florida State, Florida, and now Arkansas. First time in his career, he had multiple touchdowns in the same game. He's 7th in the SEC in receiving yards. Both he and Brennan Thompson have been outstanding. And this is the 3rd game of the season where both Evans and Thompson went over 100 yards in the same game. They become the 10th and 11th Mississippi State receivers since 1995 to have 3 or more games with 100 receiving yards in a single season. And Mississippi State picks up their first win since October 2023 against Arkansas, snapping a 16-game SEC losing streak. Shout out to Bulldog fans. Shout out to the folks in Starkville. You deserve that. And then lastly, our last winner of the week. How about over at Kentucky? Their defense racked up 7 sacks in their 10-3 road win over Auburn to get their first SEC win of the season. Kentucky improves to 3-5 overall, 1-5 in the SEC. Khalil Saunders was a monster, blowing up Auburn's offensive line all night. He had 1.5 sacks. Alex Afari had 1.5 sacks. Tavion Gadsden had 1. Sam Green had 1. Austin Ramsey, Steven Souls, and Lorenzo Cowan split a sack. Jordan Lovett had a pick. I mean, just a week after they gave Texas everything they could handle in an overtime loss, they got obliterated last week against Tennessee. Gave up 56 points in that loss. But all they needed was to face this HUGH FREEZE team as they kept Auburn's offense in check all night, holding the Tigers to just 241 yards and 6 for 16 on 3rd downs. Kentucky will host Florida this weekend, a night game at Kroger Field, so we'll see. Weird things could happen, and keep an eye on their game a week later. What was supposed to be a cupcake game against Tennessee Tech in 2 weeks, the Golden Eagles are an undefeated team at 9-0. So that game for Mark Stoops at Kentucky, that might actually be one of their toughest games of the year. So keep an eye on that. Quick note on Florida, I did see star wide receiver Dallas Wilson is going to miss the rest of the season because of a right foot injury he's sustained in the loss to Georgia. So never want to hear that. I mean, he was an instant success. He got in there against Texas a couple weeks ago, helped lead Florida to that upset win over Texas. But we'll have to wait till next year to see more of Dallas Wilson. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll get to our losers of the weekend. That's coming your way next. But first, a message from our friends at FanDuel. The NBA's back. No better way to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. And we were talking about it on our squad show yesterday, but you go look at some of the lines from over the weekend, some of the betting lines, and man, you could have really made some money on some of these upsets, particularly if you took Oklahoma straight up over Tennessee. they were a winner there. If you took Kentucky with the upset win over Auburn, that was a winner. If you took Mississippi State, upset win over Arkansas, I'm telling you, you can bet the money line on FanDuel. You can do a parlay, and it'll pay off big. Right now, new customers at FanDuel get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. If you've never played with FanDuel before, head on over there right now. Go to FanDuel.com, get signed up, play your game with FanDuel. And again, they are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's dive back into it. We did our winners of SEC Week 10. Let's get to our losers of Week 10. And some of this is a little nitpicky. I don't want to be a hater here, but let's start with Ryan O'Hara. Who is Ryan O'Hara? Well, he is Florida's new play caller. And look, I thought Billy Gonzalez did a good job of getting Florida up for this one, keeping things together in the absence of Billy Napier, who was fired just 2 weeks ago. But Florida's new play caller in Ryan O'Hara dealt with some of the same issues Napier dealt with. Fourth quarter, Florida's got a 20-17 lead on Georgia. The Gators are driving. 4th and 1 at the Georgia 18. They run Jaden Baugh up the middle. He gets stuffed. Georgia responds with a 7-play, 82-yard touchdown drive. I get a field goal there doesn't do a whole lot. Would have made it a 23-17 game, so would have given you a 6-point lead. Instead, you hang with the 3-point lead. You get stuffed. Gives Georgia that momentum. They go down, they take the lead. I just would have preferred taking the points there. Hindsight's always 20/20. I get it. But next up for the Gators, as they drop the 3-5 overall road trip to Kentucky this week, and they're at Ole Miss, home for Tennessee, home for Florida State. So still a lot of work to be done there for the Florida Gators to get through this season. Another loser of the weekend. Well, we'll get to Petrino in a second. How about Mike Shula? South Carolina fired Mike Shula over the weekend. Shane Beamer has fired Mike Shula amid program lows across the board this season. From Brad Crawford, he said this is the first coordinator firing for the Gamecocks head coach during his 5-year tenure there in Columbia. But you look at the offense this year, scoring 19.7 points per game. That's 16th in the SEC, dead last, 119th in the country. Total offense, 294 yards per game. It had to be done. Just Lenore Sellers did not get the most out of him. And Shula was originally hired to Beamer's staff as an analyst back in March of 2024 when Dowell Loggins brought Shula on board. And then Loggins was named head coach at App State this offseason. That opened the door for them to bump Shula up. Gamecocks put up just 230 yards of offense in their 30-14 loss at Ole Miss on Saturday. They were 3 for 13 on third down, 1 for 3 on fourth down. They rushed for just 50 yards as a team, turned the ball over 3 times. So according to the Big Spur, Sean Elliott and Mike Furry will serve as co-offensive coordinators. Of course, Elliott was moved to O-line coach in place of Lonnie Teasley, who Beamer fired after the LSU game last month. So a whole lot of firings going around. Another loser of the weekend, I'm going to go with the Vanderbilt defense. After a dominating effort last week in the win over Mizzou, Vandy's defense just looked unprepared out of the gates against Texas. On the first play of the game, Texas hits a 75-yard pass play to Ryan Wingo. They give up 17 first-quarter points to Texas. They allow the Longhorns to put up 428 total yards of offense on them. Texas was 7 for 11 on third downs. Did not turn the ball over. They did start getting some stops there in the fourth quarter to get back into this one, but the damage was mostly done in the first half. Missed tackles left and right. They didn't sack Arch Manning once, and they had just 1 tackle for a loss on the day. And after thinking this could be a playoff team, Vanderbilt, just a few weeks ago, Vandy's playing with trouble now. They're 7-2 overall, 3-2 in SEC play. They have home games coming up against Auburn and Kentucky, very winnable, and then a road trip to Tennessee. So you could certainly see Vanderbilt could be 9-2 going into that season finale at Tennessee. Speaking of Tennessee, another loser of the weekend, I've got Joey Aguilar and the Tennessee run game. Tennessee was playing in a de facto playoff elimination game Saturday night against Oklahoma, and offense scored just 27 points. They lose to the Sooners 33-27. Tennessee held to 35 rush attempts for just 63 net rushing yards. Very uncharacteristic of a Josh Heupel team that always runs the ball well. The Vols averaging 174 rush yards per game this season. This game, just 63. Joey Aguilar threw 2 interceptions, lost the fumble. Mistakes just added up for the night, and Oklahoma's defensive pressure was obvious. Aguilar sacked 4 times, harassed all throughout the night. And look, he did finish off for 393 and 3 touchdowns. That's not, I mean, that's nothing to sniff at. He did have, when he was good, he was on, he was very good. But all that gets spoiled by all the turnovers and missteps. Disappointing loss in front of a rocking crowd. Ended the Vols' hopes to repeat as a college football playoff qualifier. Vols will have an extra week to recover before trying to finish the season on a positive note. They, after an open date, they'll play at home against New Mexico State on November 15th. Another loser of the weekend, I got Bobby Petrino. When he was named the interim after they fired Sam Pittman, a lot of people were excited to see what he could do. And the Hawks have played very competitively. I still get the wrong picture up. They look too much alike. All right, there we go. Bobby Petrino. Arkansas led 13-7 at halftime, a 14-point lead midway through the third quarter, but they hurt themselves. 18 penalties for 193 yards. Petrino talked about it after the game saying, I can't say anything on it. Are you trying to get me fined? I do want to say something, but I can't. That's how they handcuff you. I'll just watch the video. 18 penalties for 193 yards. Arkansas is yet to win under Petrino, took over for Sam Pittman in late September. Razorbacks remain winless in SEC play just 6 seasons after back-to-back winless seasons in the conference. Arkansas travels to LSU on November 15th. But goodness, single game program records for 18 penalties and 193 yards. And then lastly, our last winner or loser of the weekend, we should say, the Auburn quarterbacks. HUGH FREEZE, he turned to Ashton Daniels, the Stanford transfer, as he went 13 for 28 passing for just 108 yards with no touchdowns and an interception. Meanwhile, Jackson Arnold would come in. He went 2 for 3 for 15 yards. Just absolutely atrocious quarterback play from Auburn this season. It was Kentucky's first win against Auburn since 2009. Wildcats have lost 19 of their previous 20 in the series. And Auburn has not won back-to-back SEC games since 2023. Auburn's defense continues to be the bright spot for them. It was the fewest points Auburn has scored at a home game since the loss to A&M back in 2021 when they lost 20-3. So there you have it. Those are our winners and losers of the weekend. One more throw in there. Drake Kirkpatrick arrested on multiple charges over at Alabama. So keep an eye on that, see what transpires from that. The report did say booked on 3 counts of reckless endangerment, 1 count of attempting to elude, and a speeding charge, released on a $1,500 bond. Lastly, let's take a look at the polls, our Week 11 coaches poll. You got A&M coming at number 3, Bama coming at number 4, Georgia coming at number 5, Ole Miss at number 7. So 4 of the top 7 teams from the SEC. Sooners hanging tough at number 12, Texas at number 13, Vandy at 16, Mizzou at 17, and Tennessee still ranked at number 22. That is the coaches poll. Over in the AP poll, not a lot different. Aggies 3, Bama 4, Georgia 5, Ole Miss 7. And then you've got Sooners 11 there, Longhorns 13, Vandy 15, Mizzou down at 19, and the Vols at 23. So those are the SEC teams in the polls. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Reminder to check out Locked On SEC simulcast daily on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. For any of our listeners in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, you can catch us weekdays 11:30 a.m. Central on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Just a quick map, over-the-air TV watching. These are the areas where you can catch us. So certainly make a concerted effort to do that. And then, of course, you can check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back and see us.